Hi, I'm Al Di Meola. Hey, can we get some Impex records over here? Thank you very much. I was in Japan at the time on tour, and a fan came up to me and wanted an autograph. I said, what is this? It's like a whole new packaging of this with this special foil that is very shiny and has different colors when you tilt it. And I said, this is beautiful. And it was very heavy. I knew this was a high-end audio label. That was the beginning of when I found out about Impex, and I was very, very impressed. And that's when I met A.B.
A.B. Fawn is the woman behind Impex Records. It's more than that. I would even say A.B. Fawn is Impex Records. Whatever they do, it's really good. And sometimes I don't even like the music, but that title is good.
Hi, I'm AB, the founder of Impex Record. My dad, David, and I founded Impex in 2010, and our focus was to create a boutique audiophile label that was really focused on quality and artist relationships. It's interesting being a reissue label. It's something that I really enjoy, very, very much enjoy doing, and it's also very difficult. It takes a little thought and creativity and skill. First step is look at the catalog that we want to work with, and then we start doing process of elimination, like, okay, who's recently done it? How long has it been since it's been reissued? Was it successful? Has there been any rumors, any problem with tapes? Once we narrow down to what we want versus what we think we can get, so we submit the list to the label, and half the time I'm praying. Half the time it's all a combination of what we can offer the label and artist. When we go through all those hurdles and we get a title clear, then that's where the work really begins. And we don't know what our sources are until we get title clearance. It's not like I can call up the studio and say, hey, tell me what you have with source available before I can even get a title clear. And Impex is also a very hands-on label. So when we're mastering, it's not just us sending the tape to the studio and go. You know, we want to be present. We want to be there to hear the source.
I've been a mastering engineer for over 50 years, but I've known AB 30 years, and I've been working with her for a long time. We've had a very good relationship, and because her values are very similar to mine. So it's a pleasure whenever I know she's coming in to do a job, because I know that everything's been really optimized and in a direction that I usually agree with. It actually makes my job easier because I'm so used to trying to find the best place to get that emotional message that all music has.
I've been working with Impex and A.B. Fawn for roughly 21 years. One of the biggest challenges in mastering would be getting the proper master to work from. Sometimes that's a simple thing, and a lot of times it isn't.
Impex always wants to work with the original master tape, but then who doesn't? Everybody wants to work with the original master tapes, but it's a little more complicated than that. When we put in a request to see what source is available with the major labels, sometimes they have original master tape, they have working parts, they have mixes, they have safety copies. I'm a little greedy and I'll tell them, I'll take everything you have and then have it sent to the studio. That's a fun working day for me. I get out of my home office, I'm in the studio, I'm being surrounded by beautiful things, music and energy, and that's just a good place for me to be at.
I don't recall anybody like that in the heyday back in the 70s or 80s that would take such minuscule points and make it a big deal. It was an amazing experience for me because I think there's one AB, and that's it.
She gets behind her projects 110%. And that is infectious. It gets everybody involved, including me, on that same wavelength. We all got to make this as great as we possibly can. Once we get the tapes, then it's a matter of running through those tapes and comparing it to an original pressing, if they're available, which they usually are. I make notes and figure out what we can do to make it better than that original.
And that's always been my goal, is to be better than my predecessor. Because if I can't be better or add more value or give you something unique, it's like, why do you want another copy of something you already have 5 copies of? And I think that's some of the challenge of being a reissue label.
I had the privilege to work with the family on reissuing the One Step for its 60th anniversary.
This is my copy.
This is your copy.
My own copy. Not only was the music, of course, was great, but the way you presented the album and the backstory behind the human story behind the records, that's everything that's so important for us to appreciate music.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Once that's done, we cut a test lacquer or an acetate that Bob Donnelly takes home and critiques.
I do all the quality control. Part of that process is endless reference lacquers on my system and systems similar to mine outside of the studio to hear them in real world situations, how people are going to hear it in their homes, not just in Bernie Grumman's studio. So I take reference lacquers home, we work it until it makes you cry or whatever. Music is supposed to be an emotional connection. So that has to be our goal, that has to be our emphasis. So everything we master is with that in mind, getting an emotional, musical experience. And then also having the detail and the resolution and all these things, everything that's on the tape that we can get, we want that too, of course. But if it doesn't have the emotional connection, the musicality, we haven't done our job.
He's the ear behind the Impex sound, so he listens to it. And when he thinks we have achieved what we're looking for, that's when I give the studio green light to cut lacquer. But between test ref and lacquer could be weeks, months of just going back and forth, discussion, EQ changes, and also engineer availability. These engineers we work with, they are all very busy and in demand. Sometimes I wait a few weeks for them to cut me a new test ref.
Changes can include multiple things. Usually it's the overall loudness of the record and specific equalization in a specific area to enhance or subdue a situation. Hopefully we're enhancing. We don't like to subdue.
The story of Impex Record really begins with Cisco Music. In 1968, Cisco International was founded by 4 good friends, and they named their company Cisco after visiting San Francisco and falling in love with it. Record stores like Tower Record or HMV carry a plethora of genre and formats, but Cisco pioneered the single genre store concept, with each store specializing in a single musical genre. Each store had records by local artists, but also imports, rare collectibles, exclusive, limited editions that you couldn't find anywhere else. We may take this for granted today, but in 1970, that was pretty unique. A Cisco store wasn't just a place to buy records, but it's also where Japan's vinyl and DJ culture thrived and evolved by building a community. Cisco was so influential at that time that a street in front of the flagship Shibuya store became a musical landmark. And it was critical in fueling Tokyo's reputation for one of the greatest vinyl hubs. In 1984, my dad, David Fawn, joined Cisco Music Los Angeles. In the early 90s, very early 90s, partnered with King Record to press the famous Super Analog Disc series in the US. They were originally pressed at the JVC Yokohama plant, which was famous for its ultra-quiet super vinyl formula. But when Yokohama plant closed, King Record was looking for a new pressing plant. That's when my dad and Takawa-san from King Record were introduced to Rick Hashimoto, who was at RTI at the time. And this began a lifelong friendship. In the 80s and early 90s, US vinyl record weight was around 120 to 140 gram. But in Japan, they were already doing 180 gram records. When you're pressing a 180 gram record, the biscuit's almost 50% more vinyl. So getting a real quiet pressing required adjusting a few protocols. For example, how to properly cool a biscuit before you go to press, or how to tighten the hydraulic squeeze sequencing. With the guidance of Takao-san and my dad, they were able to bring some of the critical know-how to RTI. So at this point, I've been working with RTI for over 30 years, first with Cisco, now with Impex.
I'm Doran Sauerbier. I'm the Vice President of Record Technology in Southern California. I've been plating for 38 years. Before that, I was a pressman. We sand the label area of the lacquer to help the label stick on the record when we are pressing the record. There's many other reasons. We sand it so that water stays on the surface of the lacquer. We also sand it on the edges to give us a place to grip when the lacquers are wet. We take it into the lacquer processing room, clean it with a soap solution, and then we rinse it with deionized water. We pre-treat it with stannous chloride, and then we place it into the silvering booth and apply a layer of silver to the surface of the lacquer. If done properly, you'll get a representation of the cut groove itself. After the lacquer is silvered, it's placed into a preplate tank to begin the deposit of nickel. The power supply operating that preplate tank is then energized. With that electricity, it attracts nickel particles from positive polarity to negative polarity. We use preplating to produce that first very gentle nickel strike, which replicates the grooves precisely. It looks like magic to me every day because you put something in and you pull out something different. The process for 1-step and 3-step is the same all the way to the point of the preplate tank. We leave the 3 steps in the preplate tank and we produce them very slowly over about 17 hours. We need to produce the 1-steps faster and in a very uniform fashion, so we move those into the high-speed rotary tanks, which is a high-speed version of the preplate that will produce an even deposit, which is needed to produce a good record stamper. So now we come to the 1-step convert, and we have to separate the convert from the lacquer. And then we're going to prepare it to form into a stamper. So this lacquer will only produce 1 stamper. We first have to peel off this excess amount off of the back of the lacquer. We call this the flange. This flange aids in sealing the edge during plating. That seal prevents the chemistry of the plating baths from entering between the 2 layers, which can destroy both. Once that flange is removed, then we can separate the convert, the top layer, from the lacquer. Then we'll remove the acetate residue from the lacquer that sticks to the convert. Traditionally, that disc can make a mother, so it performs like a master, and then can be turned into a record stamper at a later date. In essence, it's a master and a stamper. That's the conversion. That's why we call it convert, converted from a master to a stamper. The machines in this room will form the stamper from its raw nature. It's first placed into a back sanding machine so that it's more uniform in its grain and produces a better effect on the vinyl record. Then the stamper is placed into a sintering machine, and a hole is punched into the center of the stamper based on the lockout groove, which is the last portion of the groove near the label, within 15 microns. 15 microns is a smaller measurement than the groove itself can maintain. The stamper is removed from that machine, placed into a forming machine where both the outer diameter is trimmed and formed, and then the inner diameter, the center itself, is formed also.
And we usually get a set of test pressing, and some goes to Bob, some goes to me, and we listen to every test pressing. We don't just listen to 1 or 2 copy. We listen to all the test pressing to make sure it's consistently quiet. When a problem is identified on the test pressing, the first thing is emails to the pressing plant. And we'll ask them to loop the stamper to see if they see the problem on the stamper, because it's the stamper that makes the record.
For a 1-step plating That lacquer and stamper will pass through about 10 hands in just the plating department. That process will take in the neighborhood of 8 hours, total labor time. A 3-step process lacquer, I'd say you could add 2 more sets of hands, so about 12 people altogether will be involved touching that part from beginning to end. That process will take about 3 to 4 days.
In 1994, I joined Cisco Music. I worked in every department from shipping to accounting to marketing to sales. And soon after, my dad started the audiophile division. Though it was a small part of the overall business, it was a division that I gravitated towards the most. I always loved music, but I didn't realize how good a high-quality pressing on a proper system setup could sound. So under my dad's leadership, Cisco grew to a multi-location, eventually operating in New York, London, Jamaica, and Taiwan. And at the company's peak, Cisco globally employed more than 320 employees, and we were very proud of that. After 40 years, because of the downturn of the music industry, Cisco was forced to close its door on October 10th, 2008. And I felt like a part of me also closed. I worked there for 14 years and I had made many friends, and having to let go my team and say goodbye made the departure incredibly traumatic for me professionally and personally. As though that wasn't tragic enough, the very next day, the building that Cisco was located in burnt to the ground in a terrible fire. So after Cisco, I took a job in a different profession, but it didn't take me long to realize that I missed my friends and the audiophile community. So in 2010, my dad and I decided to start Impex Record. Impex stands for Import-Export. And in a way, you could say it was born from the ashes of Cisco Music, literally.
So once we get an approved test pressing, and approved test pressing requires dual approval, so Bob Donnelly absolutely needs to approve it first. When he approves it, I approve it, then we know we're ready to go. But before we can actually even start going to press, there's a whole other world of what we do, and it's creating the packaging material.
I'm Robert, and I've been designing for AB for over 20 years. We began working together in 1999 at Cisco Music, and when Cisco closed in 2008, we bounced around for a couple of years before she began Impex Records in 2010. We've been together ever since and going very strong.
He's really the brain behind all the jackets, the booklets, the slipcases, and all the beautiful things that makes Impex product beautiful.
We get one of two kinds of projects. We get reissues, and a reissue is a record that's already been out that we are going to put out again. In the case of those types of records, we'll either get a scan from the record label, a photo of the front cover from the record label, or we have to go source it ourselves at a record store or from Bob Donnelly's stash. And in that case, I make the scans myself on a flatbed scanner, edit the front of the cover in Photoshop. And in making the changes in Photoshop, I do historical analysis to see how the record looked on its original pressing. I hand type all of the words on the back of a jacket, and then I do something called typesetting, where I space the letters and the words in such a way to, as closely as possible, replicate the original. Then the other example is an original release. And what that is like a recording has never been released before, and we're given the opportunity to do it on vinyl or SACD or Gold CD or one of our formats. In the case of that, we're going to do the scans. We're going to treat that scan differently with color. In the case of Saturday Night, we hired Charles Granada to write liner notes, to interview the artist and provide additional photographs to us. Label didn't have very much for us on that one. When I get all of that together, I go online and do research, specifically about the tone of the record, what the record means, what kind of design trends were going on at the time that record would have come out if it came out in, say, 1980 or 81. Once the research is all completed, I make 2 to 3 concepts, usually just sketching on a pad. I'll do a lot of different sketches.
Gosh, that can take from weeks to months. And along just the concept of creating the visual, it's also content, you know. Do we want to add liner notes? Is there any historical data that we can bring to light? Are there really cool pictures that we can license from cool photographers who worked on the shoot of the album cover, or maybe who photographed the artist during a certain time period? So these are all things that we think about, and of course, where you get the materials, you know, that's another adventure itself. You know, we have to find who to reach out to, whether it's a photographer, the estate, a newspaper. We have even gone to great length as going to Library of Congress. We have gone to Yale University, where we know the photographer for the Duke Ellington Indigo 45 project. When he passed away, he had no heir. So he willed his beautiful collection to Yale University.
In the case of Saturday Night, Al Di Meola was directly involved in the process, so things like the purple color was something that he wanted, but also he had a say in what final concept was. Turned out he liked the same one we did, so that's pretty easy for us there. When everybody's happy and all signed off on it, then the design is made into PDF documents that are sent off to the printer.
Stoughton is my go-to print house. I've been working with Stoughton since the 90s. I love them.
My name is Rob Malshin. I'm a production planner at Stoughton Printing, and I've been here for what I believe this is my 39th year. Stoughton Printing is a print and record jacket manufacturer. We do both the director-board jackets and the old style jackets, which we are known for. Robert will send us the artwork, and that will go to pre-press. Then we'll send out a PDF for approval. That's a digital proof. Once they approve that, we make a physical proof for ourselves. Then it goes to press, which they will always come in for a press check.
We're doing an in-person press check for a new release title, Souvenir, celebrating its 50th anniversary.
All right, here we go.
Yay!
Oh, wow, the colors.
All right.
This is aqueous gloss, right?
Yeah.
Aqueous gloss. Charles.
Before we come and actually see it coming off of a 4-color offset press, these are just files in a computer. These are just pixels on a screen. And when you come and you just touch it and you see that everything that you worked so hard for in your computer is there in front of you, it really just makes this such an enjoyable part of the process. On this particular project, what I'm really looking for is a very specific, very dark brown that I chose from about 60 different options for it, and making sure that we have really good color consistency with the Henry Diltz photos. You don't want to mess with a legend like that. This just looks fantastic. Go, go, go.
All good?
It's a done deal.
Does AB like it? Does it good?
Yes. These pictures look great.
Okay guys, I have the backside of the sheetwise form. These are going to be the same densities as the other side. I'll put the proof over here.
I don't see anything here that I don't like.
Make sure before you pull the trigger.
Or magenta in the hair, but again, I think that's in the photo.
Okay. I mean, I can bring you the other sheets if you want to see them.
And what we're looking for when we get these is this brown correct? is the tonal balance of photos match the tonal balance of the photos that I saw when I was working. And then when it looks good, and this looks very good, I sign it and they go and run the batch for us.
Our main press is a Heidelberg. It's a 6-color with a coater. 28 by 40 inch plates are used on the press. It's a sheet fed press as opposed to using a roll. They're all individual sheets. They get fed through the press. The image is transferred from a plate to a blanket. The blanket's like a rubber blanket, so think of it as like a rubber stamp, a hand stamp. Same thing. The ink is transferred to that, and that transfers the image to the paper itself. Generally, it's done with 4 colors, so it has to go through 4 units. That goes to the press, and then it goes through the coating unit and a dryer. We have a dryer. And then it goes to basically fed to the pressman, and he can check the color and make changes as needed. If there is any outsourcing of, say, spot UV coating, foil stamping, embossing, once we print the job, then it will go out for that first. When we did the foil numbering on the Fogelberg Souvenirs job, we manufacture the jackets first, and then they are hand foil numbered, because you really can't do them on a machine because the number has to be turned for each one individually. So we start out at, like, if there was 3,000 of them, we start out with 0001, and they have to go all the way to 3,000. So think about that being hand done each individually instead of being on an automated machine.
We even have something called Science Project, and it's literally credited in my jacket.
Impex, and specifically Robert, he likes to come up with different things to do, like spot UV coating, die cutting on an inner pocket of an impact, adding books to the inside of an old style gatefold, just various different things. And sometimes that may take a while till where he figures out exactly where he wants it. So we kind of consider them science projects.
What we can do to make packaging sturdier, what kind of paper stock could fold nicely without having any cracks, how thick can the jacket go in weight without you seeing that crazy little split seam when they fold and open.
In reality, those are the funnest jobs for. Sometimes they can be a real headache, but when you see the finished product, it's great. You put all that time and effort into it, it ends up being more fun than just a standard direct board job 4-color process with aqueous glass coating. We get those all day long. So when we get the science projects, it takes much longer, but it's more enjoyable, and you see your really nice finished product.
It's not just a visual enhancement, it's also enhancing the quality, the longevity, the tactile feeling. I come from a philosophy where when you buy something, the experience starts from the moment it's presented to you. It's not just the record. I want your entire experience of taking it off the shelf, opening my imported Japanese LP poly bags, feeling the heavy weight of the jacket, looking at the beautiful coats of ink. And then when you put the record on, you're like, wow, it's really quiet, it's really dynamic. It's a journey. My bonus materials are not throwaway materials. It's something that was not released, something the artist may have re-recorded. I try to provide new insight, something meaningful. I think we all work hard for our money, and good records aren't inexpensive. So when someone spends their hard-earned dollar to buy my product, I really want to give them the best that I can.
You can tell like Impex puts in so much extra time and effort compared to a lot of other companies to where it's just, send us the files, print it, make the jackets, done and gone. And we don't work with them at all. I mean, we might even get files from a broker who has nothing to do with making the jackets, nothing to do with making the vinyl. So they just send us the files, and whatever they get, they get. But it's nicer to work with companies that really put their heart and soul into it and really just an extra amount of time on figuring out the stocks they want to use in the coatings and what have you, yeah.
The decisions I make while designing a project is specifically designed to evoke an emotion in the person listening to the record. So it's super important that every decision that's made helps to further that for them. So the colors that we use, they create certain emotions to it. The textures that we use, the UV spot gloss that we're famous for, the foil stamping, having a slipcase on a one-step. Does anybody need that? No, but is it satisfying as hell to pull a record out of a slipcase? Oh yes, oh yes.
Well, Impex has taken the albums that launched my career, that really launched it 30 years ago, 27 years ago, and made them new again, even better. AB worked with Jim Anderson, my engineer, who made the sound just incredible. And Robert made the presentation of the albums really something that people want to get their hands on. This has really helped me and a lot of listeners have my music that just sounds great.
Depending on how complex the job is, sometimes it can take down anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks to deliver the print materials. Once the print material is done and delivered to the pressing plant, and the pressing plant has the print materials, the test approvals, any direction or instruction from me, then they're ready to schedule a press date. And press date also, again, varies based on how busy the plant is, how much demand, if there's any material shortage, what's going on in the world. Sometimes it takes 12 weeks, 16 weeks for a record to get on press. And during COVID, it's taken up to a year sometimes. As you can see, these projects take time, it takes patience, it takes a lot of people to deliver a great album.
I've been pressing records for a short time of about 10 years. My brother has been involved in record pressing for about 15 years, and my dad has been pressing records for just over 50 years now, so we grew up around record pressing all of our lives. Pressing starts with the vinyl being conveyed from our containers into the loader, which will feed the vinyl pellets into the extruder. Once it goes through the extruder, the vinyl is melted and homogenized, and we form what is called a biscuit. The biscuit will then move over to join the labels, and the labels and the biscuit will be compressed together to attach the labels and make the vinyl small enough to make it out into the press. The machine will then take that biscuit and drop it into the center of the press onto a pen. The molds will heat up to about 300 degrees, which is the same temperature as the vinyl. Press will close under about 100 tons of force, begin forming the record. Once the record's fully formed, the heat will be turned off on the molds and we'll start running water to cool off the record. The press will then reopen, take that pressed record, send it to the trimming station where it will trim the record. And we go a step further and also do what we call a burnished edge on the record to make a smooth, round edge. We'll stack the records onto a spindle to be able to cool down to room temperature.
We're here in the QC room. We listen, check the centering. We make sure we have the labels on the right side. Make sure everything's quiet. There's no bumps, dimples. We're looking at the record under a bright light for any flaws. Because about 99% of the time, if there's a flaw on a record, you'll be able to see it. And if we see one, we can mark it and we can look at it under the microscope.
For the current project we're pressing right now, it's Patricia Barber's Modern Cool. For this release, Impex decided to use VR900D2, which is a little bit different from our standard vinyl. The biggest difference that you can notice right away is when you hold it up to the light is that it's translucent, and that's because we use a dye instead of the carbon pigment that is normally used in black records. This is a visual cue, and it also lacks the sharp edges that the carbon has, which will add to the surface noise. So one of the first audible things you might notice when you place the needle onto the lead-in groove is that it'll be almost silent, where you can't even hear that the record's spinning at all yet. Once the music comes in, you might be able to hear the next part, which is it was developed to more accurately form to each of the grooves in the scamper, so it will more accurately reflect the information that was originally cut onto the lacquer from the master tape that it was cut from. My father and I helped develop the VR900 D2 with Neotech vinyl. It was something that we've had a lot of passion about. We spent a good 2 to 3 years working with Neotech on testing the formulas and helping them to develop that so that we can produce some of the quietest and most accurate records that have ever been pressed. The VR900 D2 isn't really widely used in the industry because it is expensive. Part of that is the formula is a lot more expensive, but also the way that the vinyl behaves in the record presses, it's something only people with a good amount of experience and knowledge can be able to run efficiently. On the VR900 D2, you have to have such tight tolerances on all of your settings. Everything has to be just about perfect to be able to put out a high quality record at the end. But it's worth the extra time and effort for both us and AB because it's something that we all believe in, is giving the listener the best experience possible. After the records have been cooled 12 to 24 hours, we'll hand inspect and sleeve each individual record. Once they've been inspected and sleeved, we'll put the sleeved records into a jacket, place any inserts or anything else that goes with the album into the jacket. Then we will bag or shrink wrap the record.
There's so many steps and so many hands that it goes through before the final product. And at any given stage, something could go wrong that could create that little annoying pop, tick, or a little bit of surface noise. Because we're really ultimately trying to perfect an imperfect format.
I think she's one of the most knowledgeable, diligent, passionate record person I've ever worked with in my entire career, you know. I wish she was there at the beginning.
I hope she just keeps doing the same thing, you know, optimizing every aspect of a recording so that the listener gets the most out of it.
She elevates the people that she works with, just like the product. She makes us feel that we matter, that we're important, that we're all part of a team that's making the world better through great records.
I call it the AB effect. You will figure out, wow, somebody has really done this jacket nicely. It seems like it has been completely redone and looks better than the original. You figure, well, okay, this is a good pressing. It's not warped. They put good labels on this on an LP. Darn, who does that? And when you listen to it, you will figure out somebody has taken very special care of this. She's involved in the complete process. She's not going in there and tell somebody, okay, guys, do this remaster thing and we'll put it out and put out a lot of marketing and, you know, the audiophiles will buy it. No, only once she's got her own picture of what this record is really about, then she will end up at mastering people and work with them on how this should be sounding and give it her own vision, getting out what was really important in that recording. And I've been told by Bernie Gruntman, she's one of the more difficult clients because she wants it her way, not just, you know, make it sound good. She wants it right. And it turns out the artists kind of like what she does with the music because she figures out, wow, that is the intention we had.
Consistency happens when the same three people bring the same level of craft to every project. So if you love the sound of Impex, that's Bob Donnelly, his incredible year and dedication for more than 18 years. If you love the look of Impex, that's Robert Slager, who's been by my side for over 25 years. And we even have a pact that we would either retire together or stop when one of us dies. But if you love Impex liner note, our newest member is Chuck Granata, who's been with us for 6 years. So next time, when you're playing an Impex record, I hope you can feel the specialness and love that we put in every album.
That is how Impex records are made. This project would not have been possible without the support of Clear Audio. Clear Audio is a long-standing, family-run German manufacturer of analog audio equipment. The turntable you saw throughout this documentary is a Clear Audio Celebrity Al Di Meola Edition turntable. With the Celebrity series, Clear Audio honors the great artists of our time, like Al Di Meola. This is a limited edition, high-end, belt-driven turntable shaped like Al's 1973 Les Paul guitar. The Celebrity turntable is completely hand-built at Clear Audio's factory in Erlangen, Germany, and features a special version of the Profiler tone arm, as well as a specially developed Celebrity moving magnet cartridge, pre-mounted. Each turntable comes with a numbered, limited edition Impex Records reissue of Al's record, Elegant Gypsy, as well as a guitar pick. This turntable is available in a gloss black, like what you see behind me and what you saw throughout this documentary, as well as a wood veneer, which is what we saw at the very beginning with Al sitting at his dining table. Thank you so much for watching.
Pack up all my care and woe. Here I go, singing low. Bye, bye, blackbird.
We're doing an in-person press check, which is something that's very important to Impex Records. We're not doing any UVs on it, right?
Oh shit, I misspelled your name. Just kidding.
You've been saying Amy.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Robert and Amy pick out the colors that they... You know, it's weird, like one of my best friends is Amy. I talk to Amy constantly. I don't know if that's like...
Just look down, please. And Robert and I are here at Stoughton Printing in City of Industry. Because I keep wanting to say Culver City. I don't know why Culver City's in my head unless there's somewhere I want to go and eat. Okay.
Hi, I'm Al Di Meola, and welcome.
Welcome.
Don't say welcome.
Do you know how many numbers for souvenirs?
3,000.
But can you just give me a 3,000?
Oh, you're just going to put that in?
Yeah.
Okay. 3,000.
Can you say it a few different times? 3 different ways.
3,000. 3,000. I don't know how I can say 3,000.
Having a debuff option.
Once the stampers are approved, we'll generally receive the jackets. I already messed up.
It's okay. You can start again.
Good morning. It's 7:30 a.m. Robert and I are here at Stoughton Printing in City of Industry. See? No, it is City of Industry. No, it's Industry. City of Industry. Okay, I gotta go for a walk.